Imagine a world where the Roman Republic, once great and powerful, is plunged into chaos. Civil wars, conspiracies, betrayals, all of this became part of everyday life. And in the midst of this chaos, a young man steps onto the historical stage, destined to change the course of history. His name is Octavian, but the world will remember him as Caesar Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. How did a young heir of Julius Caesar transform a war-torn republic into a mighty empire? What sacrifices did he make for power? And why is his reign still considered one of the most significant in human history? Today, we embark on an exciting journey through the life and reign of Caesar Augustus to uncover all the secrets of his incredible destiny. The beginning, the assassination of Caesar and the power vacuum. Who was Emperor Caesar Augustus? When did he rule, and why is his reign so significant? Let's dive into history to uncover the mysteries of one of Rome's greatest rulers. Our story begins on March 15, 44 BCE, a tragic day when the Roman general Gaius Julius Caesar, who had recently been granted dictatorial powers and seemed invincible, was surrounded by a group of senators in the Senate. Suddenly, daggers struck him. Caesar, who had brought glory and power to Rome, was brutally murdered. Caesar's death left not only mourning but also a huge power vacuum. Who would now rule Rome? Would the Republic be restored, or would a new leader, such as Caesar's close ally Mark Antony, take his place? Few could have predicted that Caesar's 18-year-old great-nephew, Octavian, would be the one to change the course of history. This is the story of a young man who rose from a modest heir to become Rome's greatest emperor, Caesar Augustus. But let's go back to the beginning. Why did Caesar's assassination become such a turning point? Caesar was not just a general, he was a charismatic leader who managed to unite Rome after decades of civil wars. His reforms, such as redistributing land and granting citizenship to provincial residents, made him popular among the people but earned him the hatred of the aristocracy. It was this hatred that led to the conspiracy that ended in his assassination. Octavian's youth, Caesar's heir. To understand how Octavian became Augustus, we must return to his origins. Octavian was born in 63 BCE, at a time when his great-uncle, Julius Caesar, was just beginning his rise to power. For much of his youth, Octavian had little contact with Caesar, who was busy conquering Gaul, modern-day France, but fate had other plans. Around 48 BCE, as Octavian entered his late teens, he grew closer to Caesar. Impressed by his great-nephew's intelligence and ambition, and lacking a legitimate son of his own, Caesar adopted Octavian and named him his primary heir. This decision changed Octavian's life forever. When Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE, many saw Octavian as his rightful successor. But the young man found himself in a dangerous game of power, where every move could cost him his life. At the time of Caesar's death, Octavian was in Illyria, modern-day Balkans, for military training. Upon learning of his great-uncle's death, he immediately returned to Italy to assert his claim. However, the path to power was far from easy. Octavian faced powerful enemies, including Mark Antony, who saw himself as Caesar's true heir. Antony was an experienced general and politician, and he had no intention of yielding power to the young Octavian. The struggle for power, Octavian versus Antony. Octavian was young but incredibly ambitious. He understood that to achieve power, he needed to act quickly and decisively. His first move was to seize funds that had been collected for a planned invasion of the Parthian Empire. Octavian used this money to bribe Roman legions, securing their loyalty. By 43 BCE, Octavian was strong enough to force the Senate to appoint him consul, the highest political office in Rome. This became possible after he literally marched into Rome with his army. It was a bold and risky move, showing that Octavian was willing to do whatever it took to gain power. However, he was not alone in his ambitions. Mark Antony, Caesar's close ally, also sought leadership. Another general, Marcus Lepidus, wanted his share of power as well. For a time, they agreed to share power, forming the Second Triumvirate in 43 BCE. But this was merely a temporary alliance, behind which lay a tense struggle for influence. Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus formed an alliance to avenge Caesar's assassins and restore order to the Republic. However, their union was more out of necessity than sincerity. Each of them saw themselves as the future ruler of Rome, and their interests often clashed. In 42 BCE, Octavian and Antony defeated the conspirators' armies in Macedonia, effectively sidelining Lepidus. After this, they divided the Republic. Octavian ruled the western Mediterranean, while Antony controlled the east from Alexandria, Egypt. The division of the empire and the conflict with Antony. After forming the Second Triumvirate, Octavian, Antony, and Lepidus focused on reclaiming territories seized by Caesar's assassins. In 42 BCE, Octavian and Antony defeated the conspirators' armies in Macedonia, effectively pushing Lepidus aside. They then divided the Republic. Octavian ruled the western Mediterranean, while Antony controlled the east from Alexandria, Egypt. It was in Egypt that Antony began a relationship with Queen Cleopatra, which would later become one of the reasons for his downfall. Throughout the 30s BCE, both men strengthened their positions, but a clash seemed inevitable. In 32 BCE, Octavian convinced the Senate that Antony aimed to establish an eastern tyranny from Egypt. The Senate stripped Antony of his titles and declared war on Egypt. The ensuing conflict culminated in Octavian's decisive victory at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Antony fled to Egypt, where he and Cleopatra committed suicide after Octavian's forces captured Alexandria in 30 BCE. The rise of Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. With his victory, Octavian became the sole ruler of Rome. However, he did not immediately declare himself dictator or emperor. Instead, he gradually consolidated power, carefully avoiding the mistakes that had led to Caesar's assassination. In 27 BCE, the Senate granted him two titles, Princeps, first citizen, and Augustus, the revered one. From then on, he was known as Caesar Augustus. The constitutional changes of 27 BCE marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire, with Augustus as its first emperor. However, Augustus had to balance his authority with the Senate's approval. Over time, he acquired additional titles, such as Pater Patrii, father of the country, in 2 BCE, further solidifying his position. Reforms and achievements of Augustus. Augustus's reign brought significant changes. He stabilized the empire's borders, completing the conquest of the Iberian Peninsula and annexing Egypt. He also implemented domestic reforms, including the creation of a police force and fire service in Rome, as well as extensive road-building projects across the empire. The Golden Age of Roman culture. Beyond military and administrative achievements, Augustus's reign is celebrated as a golden age of Roman culture. He initiated vast construction projects in Rome, including temples, triumphal arches, and public baths. He also patronized great writers like Virgil, whose epic The Aeneid provided Rome with a national origin story. Succession problems and the legacy of Augustus. Despite his successes, Augustus struggled to secure a successor. His only biological child, Julia, was married to his close ally Marcus Agrippa, but Agrippa died before Augustus. Two of their sons, Gaius and Lucius, also died young. In the end, Augustus chose his stepson Tiberius as his heir. Augustus died in 14 CE, having ruled Rome for nearly 50 years. His reign brought stability and prosperity, but his successors, including Tiberius, Caligula, and Nero, failed to match his achievements. The Julio-Claudian dynasty eventually collapsed in 68 CE. Caesar Augustus remains a complex figure. While he ended the republic and centralized power, he also brought an end to decades of civil war and ushered in an era of cultural and political renewal. Caesar Augustus is more than just a name in history books. He was a man who turned chaos into order and a republic into an empire. His reign became a bridge between the era of civil wars and Rome's golden age. He left behind not only grand monuments and reforms but also a legacy that continues to inspire millennia later. But like any great ruler, Augustus had his flaws. His thirst for power, harsh decision-making, and complicated relationships with his successors remind us that even the greatest figures are not without weaknesses. What do you think of Caesar Augustus? Was he a brilliant reformer or a cunning politician who used any means to achieve his goals? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories from history. See you in the next episode.